unmuted.
Is anybody there?
Okay. Gosh darn it. Testing.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. We're ready to go. Are we ready to go? Everybody hears? Kathy does. Y'all hears?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. We were having technical difficulties down here. I just wanted to make sure. All right, we are ready to get started. So call to order. Morgan, can you take the roll call?
Yes. Mayor Linda Watkins.
Here.
Council President Shirley Ward-Mullen.
Here.
Councilor Kevin Skipper.
Here.
Councilor Guilherme Brandeo.
Here.
Councilor Grant Erickson.
Here.
Councilor Jamie Egland.
Here.
Councilor Kathy Maher. Oh,
She's here.
yep, I can't hear you very well.
She's got herself muted.
Perfect. All councilors are present and accounted for.
All righty, so we are going to start. This is a discussion about City Hall. It's the, I want to say, evergreen discussion, always there. I'm going to let you guys take over. I don't know who's taking the lead on this.
I am going to walk through at a high level the timeline to leave you a lot of opportunity to discuss the City Hall project. You've already had this material twice presented before, but I did put a debt service portion in there and just kind of go through it at a very high level to give you ample time. So back in 1913, the dedication of, on slide 1, sorry, page 3, it was the dedication of the City Hall, and it was a 2-story building, and it was combined with the fire department in 1913. And then in 1960, it also, there was a fire, oh wait, I'm sorry, it's printed double-sided. So in 1943, the building was demolished by fire. Back then, the population was about 864. And then in 1960, they moved with the fire hall, which is now known as, is now a restaurant, was rehabbed, but they're in the old fire hall building on Cooch Street. And then they could only share space for a little bit. There wasn't enough space. And so they moved to the building on Pine and Main next to the theater while they were waiting for the City Hall to be built in 1974. So on page 7, you'll see that the first proposals in 2003, after the site seer committee, our community met and said that a new city hall was one of their identified priorities. And this hand-drawn map was done during that time. The drawing went to LVC engineers and they incurred $10,000 of cost while they rendered another design. Now in the history, I don't have the actual design that they presented to council. We're trying to go through some history documents now and try to find it, but this was the handwritten proposal where they expanded City Hall on one level out to curbside. No further action was taken at that time. So in 2000, so in 2016, yeah, I'm sorry, this got copied weird, so it's thrown me out of sequence. So in 2016, I can speak to, it came to light, we worked with Marcia, and she tried to do a remodel. She met to have this building remodeled, to see what that would take, the cost it would take just to try to make this building seismic and make room. This was before the police department moved over. And during that conclusion, she worked with the citizen ad hoc committee and there was no financial viability. They said that basically it was a waste of money to try to, we would lose the council chambers and try to find a place to put city council or even have a meeting room. And we still couldn't get a public restroom or meet the basic needs of a seismic building. So during that component, there was some mixed messaging. They met with FFA architects and FFA hosted 2 town halls, worked with the citizens committee, came up with a design. We had tours of the building for our citizens to show them the disintegration of the buildings and what we were dealing with. And this was right after the school bond, and the taxpayers were not quite ready to absorb another bond, even though it was, I think it was gonna be like 60 cents on the per thousand. And what happened is that they didn't understand that the city hall building was gonna be financed, but the bond was only for the public safety side, which would give us more opportunities for grants, because public safety with emergency operations centers has more grant availability. So they split the financing. It was for a total package, but there was some confusion with our community thinking that this was for just the police side and not city hall, but it was a total package. The bond was just to pay for the police portion, and then we were financing. So if you guys endeavor to go forward, we'll have to have some clear messaging so that they could understand what happened in 2016. So in 2018, it was directed to staff to look at this again with a fresh set of eyes. And so we did. We actually started work with George Fox in Newburgh, who for free did town halls, invited community members, came up with what the community was looking for, what they would like to see in a city hall. They worked pretty extensively. Both the mayor and I had an opportunity to actually go to the university and see the students in action. And then they came here and did interview, they did a barbecue, they did multiple things. And they came up with a rendering of what we think we would like as a community. And that was something in a barrel type shaped roof, a brick facade that would match the downtown, going curbside and just fitting in with our downtown environment. So at that point, the city council approved moving forward to go with an RFP for an architect to bring this to life and actually bring the city hall forward. So, yeah. I'm really sorry, these slides are so far out of order, so I'm gonna have to wing some of it. So during this time, Holtz worked with city council and presented a design in February. And it was a building, everybody was excited, it had warm lights, it had the curved roof, it had the brick we were looking for, we had some foundation, and then COVID hit. During the COVID situation, the city, March's city council was done. There was some communication from the architect at that point to city staff that the barrel roof would be costly and that we would have we were trying to reduce any debt service and we'd have a more cost effective to do either a flat or an angled type roof and reduce the square footage. So they reduced the square footage and it got presented to council with no communication in the meantime about the barrel roof or why we couldn't do the barrel roof or why there was a drastic change. So at the time of presentation, it was a little bit shocking for council at that point. And then we had that in April. We came back in May with a final presentation and COVID was so strong at that point, the project has been paused. So we come to present day here now and there's no doubt we need a new city hall. We know that both buildings where the police are and this building itself are both not seismic or don't have the ability to handle a major event. We found out through the ice storm that it's also not equipped to even keep the power running or help serve our citizens. And then a timeline, you'll see that we listed a lot of community benefits for what this provides to the community, not what it really is providing for the staff. But the ice storm really brought into realization after the timeline was created, it is for staff also. The staff is the contributor to the community. We are servicing the community. We are talking to them on the phone every day. They're in talking to us. We help facilitate special programs for our community. This was a community room. Some of you are new, so you don't know that we've actually had to evacuate staff, having the police department suspects coming to City Hall at the reception and the victims on top of having someone paying a water bill. Multiple times we've actually had to evacuate. There was a bomb threat, so they also put a barricade up, which does not work effectively. It takes forever to get down. So we have to have emergency protocols for the police component. And then the new city hall was to provide a small little tiny place to put the suspects and witnesses as officers get called in to help them, but also to supply an emergency vestibule if someone is running from a domestic violence situation, that they can have a safe place to get in and lock themselves in, but not access into City Hall. So those community needs for their safety and the service to our community are critical. Have we made it work? Yes, we're here. We've got the police department over there, but these buildings are, if we don't proceed with City Hall, we have significant repairs, and that's not making it seismic. It is, both roofs have several layers. The police department actually is leaking right now, and we haven't re-roofed it because we're trying to get direction before we start spending money. We will have to put in a generator, and the HVAC is failing on both buildings. So there's extensive, probably so when you do a roof, it has to be prevailing wage. It's not like doing your own roof at home. It is, when you touch a government building, it has a different rate to it, which is what drives the cost of the building. There's been a lot of design ideas. I can tell you that council was happy with the design of the interior, it was the exterior that was displeasing. I do not believe it's going to cost much to make it appeasing to, for the aesthetics, where council comes to a consensus. If you decide to go forward with the city hall, we're gonna have to be really cognizant of our messaging and our talking to the community. So a lot of community members don't know that these are not seismic buildings. During the 2016, a lot of them did take tours and were shocked at the disrepair of the buildings. But we've got a lot of things to factor. But I can tell you cost-wise, we're about 388,000 deep with the costs of the architects from the 2016 and most recently $250,000 with Holtz architecture. We have a good design. We've already done the geotech, so it would be fine tuning that if you decide to proceed. We have several lenders that will be taking us on if we decide to do it. This is not a bond. This is going to be debt service that we've already established. And so because we do water and sewer work out of here, the debt is paid by transfers and from water, sewer, and the general fund. And we have established that since 2012, which the lenders are appreciative of, because it shows that we have established that capacity to pay the loan. The big thing is I had someone on council ask me to do a comparator. Right now, the rates are low because of the COVID situation. And that was on page 17. And on that comparison, you can see the total payment or the increase. And this is just a quick, the loan originally in 2016 was 4.25, so I pulled that. Currently, the rates are, I reached out to 2 lenders that are interested in carrying this loan, and it's at 2.24. And then I did a loan 3 option. It was one we didn't seriously entertain back in 2016, but that was a rate they were offering, just so you can see what we would be totally paying at the end of a 25-year period. That we could do a longer period of 30, 35 years, but we were directed by council back then that they didn't want to carry the debt on the new city hall for a longer term, that they would prefer paying it off sooner than later. So I know I talked through this really fast. I apologize about the disorder of the slides. I'm just thankful it's like the 3rd time you've had them. So we're open for questions, but this is more for you guys as council to decide pause forever or proceed. So, Councilor Ward-Mullen.
Oh, I wanted to add one thing, Christy, when you were speaking of the latest Holst architecture. When the design was changed somewhat back in early 2020, it's my understanding that, I know you mentioned the barrel roof, but the real concern was, I believe at the time, that that design was going to incorporate a good part of the existing building where city council or, city hall occupies now. But it was determined by the engineering report, I believe, that the building, it could not pass muster. So they had to go back and do redesign. Do I have that correct?
You do have that correct. We originally were going to attach, and then it would not attach to this building. It failed that inspection test. And so this building would have to be demoed. We found that out. We also found out that the barrel roof itself, because we have a smaller footprint, they felt the cost to do that barrel would not be conducive to the project. But looking back on it today, I was reviewing with our city manager, Shannon Beaucaire, that how it looked and how it progressed. I think that there could be viable options, even if it wasn't a total barrel roof, but just like doing something wooden, just something on the outside that still gave that curb appeal. But that's later on the road if you wanted to do that. But that is correct. We could not attach to this building. Councilor Arrington.
So I was wondering, so you're talking about the same design, basically, of the building that we put on hold to the prior, when the, before Linda became mayor. And in that building, the size of our town and then the smaller towns around us, do these smaller towns that are around us also have some type of a holding area for what, I don't know if you want to call them prisoners or people under arrest? I don't know the correct terminology there. Is that really needed in that design?
So the holding area is not like an interview room. It is a place, our reception area can put a suspect. So it's like a little tiny reception area. It takes them away from the counter. It is, the cost of it was not increased because of that. The police department gave up room. There's no one manning it. It's a secure door. It's just a place to get them out of the general public. You know, when they're coming in to pay their water bills, we can have John Doe, please sit in here and wait until Officer Smith can come and help you. That way they're not standing at the counter with the person paying the water bill. But it wasn't an increase in cost. The police gave up space to have it's a little tiny lobby, but it's a secure lobby. It's not a holding room.
Okay. But you're still trying to push through the same building that we put on hold, or that the city put on hold before. Is that true?
Not necessarily. I'm saying that the footprint inside was reduced and adequate and served the needs. It was the exterior that was displeasing and the lack of communication. It is council to decide if they want to take a look at it. The biggest thing in there is the community room is encompassing it for the ability so our community can use it. And the ability for us to use it to house in an emergency situation. For example, like when we had no power, we could have had people in here that could have helped, that we could have helped or serviced there, and even it has a kitchen. There's no excess offices. There's, everything is in small detail. But I'm just saying that we would have to bear the cost if you guys found the interior design still acceptable, but that won't be my decision to make. It would be less costly.
So when there's, say like in this last storm we had and we were out of power and these things, and you're talking about an area for people of town to go to, was not the fire department available? If you moved all the trucks outside, was that not able to be used then for where people could go and be?
Well, that's an interesting statement. That's something we should talk with the fire chief, but the fire chief also was running out of there, and they had, like he shared last time, they had so many calls and we hadn't coordinated. Then we would have to call staff in to work into a building we don't have access to. We'd have to plan that. That could be an option. I'm not saying that's not an option, but I can tell you they're frantically, it's a small space down there, working in and out of it themselves, and to bring community members in that small room where you just recently did your goal setting. I'm not sure, but that's a conversation with the fire chief.
I'm not talking about the goal setting room. I'm talking about the room where they house the fire trucks.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're working emergencies. We couldn't put community in there.
If the trucks were moved outside, that part of that wouldn't be available.
That's not a protected area for citizens to be, and that equipment, they're in and out. They were in full emergency mode. The goal setting room would be the only area.
We've got other questions here. Counselor England.
Hi, just a quick question. You're talking about going out for a loan. Is there an option to go out for a bond, or why did you choose a loan versus a bond?
The reason we chose is, the community has given a loud message, they want no bond. They're still reeling from the school bond. We hear it almost on a daily basis, through our customers. And they aren't ready to embrace anything extra at this point. We could certainly be directed to go out for a bond. But in the meantime, while we go through that process, if it doesn't make it, then we're still back at square one and then have our rates changing. It's just kind of a temperature of what happened in 2016.
While I understand that, wouldn't there be other increases to cover the debt service of the loan? In a different way, maybe?
Possibly.
Yeah.
There's all different creative financing opportunities. I'm just not sure if the community would be ready for that. That would be something we could explore. Or
Just, yeah, thank you.
Hold on. Counselor Ward Mullen was next. And
Yeah, I wanted to respond to just or kind of answer a couple of points that Grant brought up. One is when we decided to hold off last year in March, April, whatever timeframe, that was, well, there was kind of two reasons for it. One is that we, the council, sort of found out at the last minute about this big design change. So we were sort of thrown off guard by that. But secondly, and more importantly, it was the very beginning of the pandemic. And I, for one, spoke up and said, we need to put this on hold because none of us knew what the economic forecast was going to be based on the pandemic at that time. And then secondly, you were asking questions about the holding area for the police department. And just so you know, in the first design, and when the public safety building went out for the bond that failed, the design, it was a much more elaborate for holding for suspects. And there was I think it was called a dolly port, if I'm not mistaken. And so when that bond failed and we went and did the second design, it's way scaled back. So I just want to make sure I clarified that for you.
thanks. Counselor Brandau.
Hi, so just to clarify, are we proposing to pay the loan with the water and sewage bill?
Oh, no, that's a good question. No, so it's water and sewer funds have to contribute equally with general fund to pay the debt service because we serve it. It's not the bill, it's a transfer. We've been making a transfer over to a city hall fund since 2012. It is not,
Okay,
yeah, but it does have, water and sewer fund does have revenues coming in from water and sewer bills. And like in the rate analysis, that transfer, it's 100,000 out of a totality of $1 million. It's 100,000, so it's a very small percentage that transfers over to debt service for it. So it does have a small impact in the rate, but it's a small
From each fund,
so
water and sewer.
100,000.
100,000 out of sewer.
so it's not directly, but in the end, it's coming from the water bill, the sewage.
Part of it, a third from water, a third from sewer, but it's a small percentage in totality to their revenue. So
What is the percentage? Sorry.
I don't have it in front of me, but their revenues are running about $1 million, say in both funds, and it's $100,000 transfer.
So about 10% then?
Yeah,
So
yes,
it's about 10%.
yeah.
Okay, and then my other question is, we have 1.3 millions in the cash. What do you have here? In the capital improvement fund?
Correct.
So all of that would be used for the for the building, I assume.
That is correct. That will be slated for, it'll originally start with soft costs, it'll finish up engineering, any other tests we need to do that are surveys, and then it will move into the project. So, but if that's where we will go out to bid is finish it. So we've got some significant funds saved.
Okay. And I was looking at the expenses we have for the current city hall. If we were to fix all the problems we have, I calculated 800,000, 815,000. So technically, we could use the fund to pay for all the repairs we have and still have almost $1 million there. Correct? So we could technically fix everything in the city hall that we have a problem with.
You could fix everything except the building's viability to withstand any catastrophes. So you could cosmetically fix the buildings, you are correct.
And we wouldn't have to worry about anything because we have the funds already in that fund that we could use.
Yeah, the only thing you'd have to worry about is when the building's flat and the people there to save your lives have no place, that they're displaced, because we have all small, it's hard to explain, but you would have no service to the community from city.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I feel like the whole town will probably be a problem if we have an accident here, but I understand that it would be nice to have a building that could withstand an earthquake and possibly an earthquake, but I think the whole town would be in a big trouble if that would happen. A lot of the buildings here.
You are correct, town would be in really serious, dire straits.
Yeah.
Counselor Skipper, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. So expenditures to date are 388,000. And so those have already been paid, I'm assuming, out of that capital improvement fund. So we had roughly about $1.7 million in there, and we've spent 388, correct?
Correct.
And then and so in the loan comparison, so then we're looking at another $5 million, a $5 million loan for a total of 6.7 million for total cost. Is that how I read it correctly?
No, the total cost is gonna be 4 to 5 million. It's hard, I don't know the current, because we paused it for so long, but that we'll be using the million in that cost.
Oh, okay, I was thrown off because that loan I thought was a $5 million loan comparison, so.
Well, I'm a little concerned about the pause, and then we also have some increased prices in building materials and those type of things. So that's just a safe number, so we're not blindsided when it comes.
Understood. And then another quick question, I've seen the design back before I was on council. Is that something that can be sent to us? And
Oh, yeah.
And then also curious to the footprint of it, where the police department currently is, are those buildings slated to be demolished as well? Or if we went through with this, or would those stay and we could possibly have some openings for business or commercial application, for the.
So that's a good question. We tentatively were believing that we were going to turn it into parking for downtown. And we had when we had business over here, we had a wine tasting room, and she said, quote unquote, that the Pine Street was like, there was an invisible barrier. She had a terrible time trying to direct traffic, but that doesn't mean that the city couldn't come up with some other opportunities to try to get traffic to cross Pine Street and increase. So there's two ways, and council would decide if they wanted to proceed with renting those buildings and just doing the maintenance on them, or demoing them and using them for parking.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Council President Ward Mullen.
Yeah, I was just going to make another point to what Jeremy was asking about if we repair the existing building versus a new building. If we did repair the existing building, we also would not be allowed to build a command center, which is another area that is important for our city. if we look at this, I try to look at this project for the city hall as not what's just current or a year from now or 2 years from now. I'm trying to look at it strategically for 50 years from now. You know, we need to prepare ourselves and build a structure that can withstand that period of time and be forward thinking about it. And, you know, right now, I mean, actually it's kind of, you know, the situation with the pandemic has kind of created the perfect opportunity because of lower interest rates and everything. So it puts us in a better position to carry through with this plan than it would have a year ago at this time.
Shirley, I'd like to talk about that a little bit. So the command center or an emergency operations center is critical to all cities, and all cities try to put one in one way or fashion. So much so that there are a lot of grant opportunities to actually pay for that portion. We cannot apply for any grants for seismic or emergency operations centers until we actually have a confirmed we're going out to bid, and then we can apply for grant monies to help in that portion. An emergency operations center is a building that can withstand an emergency, that can be powered up, that can service the community, that the police department, fire chiefs, other agencies have a place to actually meet and brief on how to handle from one event to the other. I can tell you, just in the small ice, Public Works and police were standing out there in the ice trying to determine which one to hit, working with fire. And this was a small event, you know, it was a 4 or 5 day event, but they're out there trying to coordinate. Phones weren't working, they weren't going off the towers. And it was chaotic. That they did a remarkable job. They all buckled in and were running all over town, putting yellow tapes, moving stuff, citizens trying to help them move things. But that's just a small scale. This is a centered, delegated response to our community and how to serve this so-and-so's residence just got flattened. This team's going to hear. It's like whiteboards. It's like you see on, like the crime shows. It's kind of hard to explain, but they have boards, projections. They distribute and staff and resource any emergency, and all the calls come into that emergency operations center, and they work with dispatch. So I'm hoping I'm explaining that and trying to give you a visual.
I asked city manager to weigh in a little bit on this too. I think she's had some experiences of that. So
in my previous city, we converted our community center into our emergency operations center, prepared to have the emergency operations center there. We had some of the generator. So we had the ability when we lost power during the firestorms for people to come in to charge their phones, to be able to call their loved ones, let them know that they were okay. We also had the ability for people with medical equipment that needed to be charged, oxygen tanks, CPAP machines, to be able to do that. We had a commercial kitchen, and when people were being evacuated out of Otis and Lincoln City, we prepared, and I called my entire council and had all hands on deck to prepare our major recreation area, the gym, to be able to feed and possibly house evacuees. So it was very critical as a community service. It later turned into a donation center where we were able to collect donations and be able to help those victims. And we were able to counsel a lot of those victims during that procedure. So it was a great community service, not only for our community and for people's medical needs and for medicine that needed to stay cold, but also for our surrounding community members and for us to be able to participate in part of the relief effort.
So that's kind of what we're talking about with the command center and what they're looking at here. Councilor Erickson, you had something on your mind?
Yeah, do we have an example, say from the other surrounding small towns around us that actually have a command center, or do they exist, or are we like going to be the first town, small town with this, or?
No, they do exist. McMinnville obviously isn't small, but has a big one. Yamhill, they have, the two domes that they build are supposed to be emergency operations center. I don't believe they opened them up during, the ice crisis. They didn't. So, but they were also designed for that component. I haven't had access to it. Dayton has something small, but I'm not sure without contacting each city to see what theirs look like.
Can we get some kind of information or pictures or different things to look at so we have more of an understanding, at least for myself, to see exactly what this is all about, before we decide to, to move on with this whole big project?
Counselor Erickson, I also wanted to speak a little bit to that. Having recently gone through many FEMA classes, my understanding is, well, this has always been part of emergency preparedness. It's becoming more and more part of the forefront of cities, all size cities, becoming prepared for emergency preparedness as we're seeing greater emergencies happening, fires that are burning hotter, faster, flooding that's occurring, just greater emergencies, natural disasters that we're seeing that are more significant. And I've seen a real emphasis in my FEMA training that regardless of size, you have to be prepared to the greatest extent possible to take care of your community in such a situation. And so I think, well, it may not be apples to apples comparison or in surrounding towns. I think it's getting greater emphasis in being prepared to take care of your community because you may be isolated. You may not be able to count on larger communities, even if they are nearby.
Right, I understand that. I mean, I agree that we need some kind of area to take care of the community. I get that. But this $5 million that I'm hearing about to build this new city hall building thing, I'm questioning, are there some things we can do to streamline or change this or change that, put more money into this and less money into the, areas for the community, a big city community room or different, to revamp it in some ways, just to use the money in a better way.
I can tell you in cost wise, the pool building itself was $2 million. It has no heating, no seating, no aesthetics, just the outside as a cost comparison. So to give you an idea of how much we miniaturized this footprint to bring the cost down. When FAA had it in 2016, when we revisited it, they had it at 8 million. We cut it at half when it came back to council. So, and that pool building is just D and big inside, and it's prevailing wage and the cost of the materials. This is not a big building. We didn't even to reduce the cost, we didn't even take it 2-story all the way across. We only did it on the one side to get City Hall staff some space to work in. Just kind of give you some comparisons.
Yeah, okay. I'm just questioning the total dollar figure and what we're building, if we can go over the design again maybe, or clean it up a little bit from what we were presented before. It just seemed before the design, it was just a little bit over the top, a little more too elaborate in my opinion.
Well, the entire council had some questions about that. Councilor Eglin, did you have a question, comment?
No, I just wanted to make a comment. I just want to make sure that if there's a way to partner with other organizations like the school or even Yamhill, I hope we ask those questions because those two domes are there. And if there's a way to partner with the school district to use those on our behalf, that would be helpful. And then just a real quick question. Does the city have a business continuity plan? A formal one?
An emergency operation plan? Is that-
Okay, I guess.
I-
Just a plan on how you're gonna stay in business if there's an emergency.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Maher, did you have something going on there? Kathy?
We're not able to hear you.
It says we should be, oh, now you're off.
Yeah, I think there might be a problem with the headset.
She shows mute again. Yeah. she's back to mute. Okay. Counselor Brandau.
So going back to the bond and when it failed in 2018, was that the last bond that we tried to pass?
It was 2016, and yes, that was the last bond.
And what were the bond before the last two bonds we tried to pass or passed?
It was actually that was passed before, that was the school bond. It had a significant impact on the property taxes for, and they were not ready to embrace another bond.
And before that was at the pool.
The school?
The pool, yes, the pool has a bond and it was 2015, that is correct. And it's about, running right now, about 54 cents per thousand.
Okay.
That should be getting close.
So only the pool and the school passed, but the last bond, the city hall didn't pass.
Correct.
Well, that was not at City Hall. We were doing that as the police side. Police side, it was not.
It would be a bigger ask to ask the community to pick up the cost on their property taxes. We felt at the time, and they didn't even wanna, the police side was 60 some per thousand, and they did not want to bear that cost.
I thought on page 14, it says it was May 2018 elections for the city hall bond. So it was 2018.
It was 16 was the city hall bond, 14, okay.
It was 2017.
It was 17, that's the date's incorrect, Jeremy.
So it wasn't May 18,
Was it May 18 though, Shirley, that it rolled around? Because it was a special date. I'll have to check on that.
okay. I'm just trying to see the timeline of the bonds we had. Okay.
We're
And I
getting,
was at that time, do we had any ideas why we didn't try to do anything with the city hall? Like just in terms of priority, it seems like we went from the pool, the school, and then city hall. It seems like the city hall has been an issue for a long time.
Well, that's a good question. The pool is probably one of the most beloved prizes of this community. As you know, we operate the pool, even at its best, always at a loss. The community loves that pool. They talk about their kids swimming in that pool. And it's a feel-good project over a city hall project. And that pool, that they called it the bathhouse, was gone. We would not have the ability to help for our kids and part-time jobs for our teenagers. That pool house was a disaster. So in the community's eyes, it's a beloved treasure as compared to, it's hard for the community to think of City Hall as something beloved when they're having to come in and pay their bills. It had a different feel to it. That's why that pool house was done during that time.
Okay. And I just bring that up because with people I talk with, it seems like there was sort of a priority there that we, like, I wasn't here when the pool was approved, but we decided to go with the pool, and a lot of people didn't like it. And then we went through the school, which is a good investment in my opinion, and then we are asking for the city hall. It just seems like I don't know. It just seems like the city hall will be a biggest priority from what we're talking here. But I guess we can come back in time, but it's just what I hear.
Councilor Ward.
But that's more of a comment, not a question.
Yeah.
I just came on the council at the time when, actually in the election that I was elected councilor in 2015, the pool bond failed. And so when I was sworn in, the first project that I was given was to get a citizen committee together and talk about reconsidering whether we were going to go out for a bond again. Anyway, long story short, we decided to do that. And the pool house situation, you know, I know how that seems, Jeremy, like, oh, why are you doing the pool in City Hall seems more important. But the pool it was an emergency basically, because the pool house was on the precipice of being condemned. And if that building was condemned, the pool would have to be shut down and it would just sit there. And as Christy said, that this pool, it has a very long history in Carlton that actually goes back to 1920 when it was first thought of to build that pool in the pool house. So it's a very long history. There's been generations of people in Carlton and beyond that have utilized that pool. So it tore at the heartstrings. So that that is why we decided to go forward with it.
Having had this discussion, we're running out of time here. I would like to just get a kind of a general feel from the council. Would you, do you all have information that you brought up tonight that we didn't have answers for, that we could maybe research and have staff come back to you with the answers to those questions at either the next meeting or a work session in between? If you've got some questions, speak up and we can make a note of them and staff can check it out. Councilor Eglin.
I just want to make sure that we get a copy of the design again so we can see that. And I think Kevin mentioned that, so thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Councilor Erickson.
Yeah, on the, let's see, what is it here? Page 16 of 123 of the City Hall. It talks about a generator for the building. Am I reading this right? 200,000?
So at that point, so the generator would have to run both buildings. We'd have to install a pad, a conduit. It is the price, once it hits over, has to be bid out. The engineer gave us a blanket cost at the time that the timeline was made. These are estimates. We have not had formal bid on these components, but I can tell you the one that we're transferring down to try to get viability in the public works building was 100,000 itself, and this one is slated to be bigger.
That just seems over, okay. And then the HVAC system, 150,000. Did you look into doing ductless systems within the buildings instead of a complete rooftop type HVAC system?
Well, there'd be punching through cinder block, but that could be looked at. Obviously, these can be shopped around or looked at. I'm not sure if an HVAC ductless would work in here, but nothing's off the table.
Okay, so where did these numbers come from? Have you actually gone out and got bids, or are these just kind of guesstimation numbers for these? I mean, we've got this trip fall hazard stuff. It's just around the steps on the outside of the building. $175,000 to get rid of some concrete. Why don't we just put maybe some railing around it to keep people from using that area?
These are engineer estimates without bidding, and what they were, that it isn't, touching a municipal building is not as simple as that. You
I understand all of that about,
You have to meet ADA when you touch it, and then you have to, do prevailing wage, and then you have to bid it out. So each component, but these are rough estimates at the time of that, we have had no formal bids on those particular items.
okay, yeah, I'm just looking at these numbers and they just seem way out of line for what to do the, $8,000 to paint that small building, that's way out of line. So, I mean, so are we gonna get better
We actually have-
pricing
we actually
bids
have
on
bids.
this?
If we proceeded on that, it would be bid out. Anything over 5,000 has to have 3 bids. We actually have a bid for painting the building, and it was 8,000. So that was the only thing we had actual, but we weren't, because we had some graffiti put in the back, so someone came in and gave us a bid. That was not 3 bids.
So you had one company give you a bid for 8,000?
Yes, but that grant, that was, we did not proceed with it forward. Lynn found some paint that matched the building and just painted over it. The city is always looking to be fiscal responsibility, and if it goes over 5,000, it has to have 3 bids to proceed. We just don't use anybody that comes to do the.
Okay, so the parking lot, what are they doing at $200,000? Is that just for the front portion of the building for the parking lot?
The parking lot is behind us. It's required to be paved. And so they're gonna have to pave, level it. It has to meet downtown standards. They have to put a fence in. They have to put planting in to meet our code and standards. The same with, as you call the steps around the building, the minute we touch them, it has to be brought up to downtown standards and ADA compliant. And that was also an engineer cost.
And you probably missed the last planning commission meeting, but one of the things that the planning commission last meeting was approving the design for the parking lot back here. They have to go through the same process the city does that anybody that's putting in parking lot would have to do, so.
Has to be engineered, created, paved. It's not as simple when you touch a municipal building.
Yeah, I totally understand all about prevailing wages and public buildings and things. I get all of that. So these numbers were basically just kind of pulled out of the air type of thing, or, they're not solid numbers yet.
They're not solid numbers. They were discussed with the engineer. We have a high concern that our ceiling has material that we shouldn't even be housed in. We haven't addressed that. We have a low vent. We have 3 layers of roofing. We're not up to code. And the minute we touch this building, it drives the numbers. So there's a multitude of factors that lie in those numbers as engineers think. I'm not a contractor. I can just tell you what I've been told. And we have people that actually refuse to go in the ceiling and work on our ductwork and our HVAC system and our wiring.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any more bits of information that you would like maybe the staff to get back to you with? Because we're gonna shut this baby down here shortly.
If you guys think of anything in the meantime, just send them to Shannon and we will get those answers to you. We'll make sure you get the design. She just got all of her files set up with IT, so she has access to all the information, and we'll be happy to get it to you.
Before we close this meeting, I do want to remind you folks of one thing, something that we talked about early on with having a new city manager and also working with the city manager and working with the, Shirley, help me out here, the evaluation of the city manager, and that is that our city council stay in close contact with our city manager. And we have these meetings, but I would also like to encourage all of you to, over the next few months, be sure that you take some time make an appointment with Shannon, come in, say hi, visit, just get acquainted, talk to her about things that are on your mind, and let you and her get acquainted and have an idea of what everybody's thinking. Basically, we want to ensure that all of the counselors and our city manager have all of the communication that they need, and that you're not wondering what each other is thinking, that you actually have been talking and know things and see what, something's on your mind that you want to bring up to the council. This is a good place to do that too. Having said that, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a
I
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys. And then we're launching into, and it's 7 o'clock, so does anybody need to take a quick break, or think we're good? Y'all good? Okay. We will start.
And before you do roll call, could you read the rules of the meeting?
Okay, so we will call to order the April meeting of the Carlton City Council.
Please listen carefully. This message is lengthy but has important procedural information. Before we begin the citizen comment portion of the meeting, please note participants have been muted by the host to reduce audio feedback interference during the recorded meeting. Participants may only unmute themselves when called upon. Participants who unmute themselves and interject out of turn will be removed to reduce audio interference. Participants must be displayed as true name or phone number, or removal will occur. For citizen comments, the city truly wants to hear the public voice and encourages all citizens who wish to make a public comment to participate. If you wish to make a comment and have joined using a computer or mobile app, please use the raise hand function so the host can see who wishes to speak. If you're not using a computer and are listening to the meeting using the provided telephone number, please hit *9 on your telephone keypad to use the raise hand function. When it's your turn to speak, the host will call the participant's name. The participant may unmute their microphone and clearly state their name and address for the record. Each participant will then have 3 minutes to speak. Behavior must meet council meeting rule number 5, stating when addressing the council, speakers shall be respectful and avoid using profanity, threatening language, or verbal attacks. Anyone found to violate these rules will be removed. Given the nature of the Zoom system, participants may not be called in the order their hand was raised. However, rest assured that every individual who raised their hand will be given the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
All right, Mayor Linda Watkins,
Here.
Council President Shirley Ward Mullen,
Here.
Councilor Kevin Skipper,
Here.
Councilor Guilherme Brandeo,
Here.
Councilor Grant Erickson, Councilor Jamie Egland,
Here.
Councilor Kathy Maher. All councilors are present and accounted for.
Thank you. Join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I have none, Mayor.
This is. Okay, before we go a whole heck of a lot further here, I didn't do this during the work session because I wanted to wait until we were at the public session to say, ta-da! And welcome Shannon to, Shannon Beaucaire, who is our new city manager, for those of you who have not met her, and for those of you who have, I know that you're excited to see her here. So we're very, very happy, and we hope we don't. Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with everyone. All right, take care of that. More of that later. Ceremonies, appointments, and announcements. We do have the Juliet's House presentation and proclamation, and I am going to ask our council president, Shirley Ward Mullen, to take care of this portion of the agenda and read the proclamation when we are ready to do that.
Okay. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Linda.
I should have also said that Councilor Ward Mullen is also the vice chair of the Juliet's House Board of Directors, and this is why this is so much of caring for her. Anyhow.
So it's my honor as being part of the board of Juliet's House and the mission of Juliet's House, and also being on Carlton City Council to read this proclamation in support of Child Abuse Prevention Month of April 2021. So the proclamation reads as, done this day, April 6, 2021. Whereas child abuse is one of our nation's most serious public health problems, with scientific studies documenting the link between the abuse of children and a wide range of medical, emotional, psychological, and behavioral disorders. And whereas it is estimated that 1 in 4 children will suffer significant abuse before the age of 18, and annually over 80,000 Oregonian children, 89,451 in 2019, are reported to the Department of Human Services as having been abused or neglected, with 13,674 child abuse victims confirmed in 2019 alone, although many cases go unreported. And whereas the physical, emotional, mental, and financial impact of abuse falls on children of all ages and abilities who come from all economic, racial, and social backgrounds, and these crimes affect many more family members, friends, neighbors, and community. And whereas effective child abuse prevention efforts succeed because of partnerships created among state and local government agencies, schools, faith communities, civic and community organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community, while recognizing that feeling connected to community can be a protective factor against child abuse. And whereas Carlton, Oregon is dedicated to stopping child abuse and supporting survivors and their non-offending families while working to prevent, whereas each of us has a role to play in stopping the problem of child abuse as part of solution by learning how to prevent, recognize, and report child abuse, and supporting prevention, education, and empowerment programs for children and youth. Now, therefore, we, the Carlton City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2021 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month. We reaffirm Carlton, Oregon's commitment to creating a safer, healthier, more thriving community for our children, and taking steps to help prevent child abuse through awareness efforts, prevention promotion, and trainings on responding responsibly. We encourage all citizens to wear blue on April 21st, 2021, as a public statement in Carlton, Oregon, in support of child abuse prevention. Further, we call upon all citizens to invest in the lives of children by learning what they can do to help stop child abuse through Juliet's House, a community resource, by visiting julietshouse.org.
Do I have a motion to approve this proclamation?
I move that we approve the proclamation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Okay, this proclamation has been approved and read. Thank you. Carol Joa, you're here with Juliet's House also. Do you have any comments or want to say anything at this time?
I want to thank you as a city and a city council for recognizing the need for raising the awareness and for participating. Thank you for allowing us to plant a pinwheel garden and signs in Ladd Park. We also have pinwheels in the sign at the Carlton Fire Department. And we are hoping to get together an awareness rally in the city of Carlton. So any of you know of a person who might be a lead person to work with us on that, we would really appreciate that. I appreciate so much your mentioning April 21st. We want everyone to wear blue, everyone. And I don't know if you've received a link for all of our April events, and maybe Shirley, you can answer that, but I would be happy to send a site where people, if you would publish it on your social media and your website, where they can go in and see what's going on.
Thank you.
And there are more signs and pinwheels at Juliet's house. There's no charge if you'd like to make a donation, but if you know of someone or you'd like to have a sign and pinwheels in your yard, contact Juliet's house.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing this with us. All righty, we are moving on to citizen comments.
No, before that, if you could do the budget committee
Oh,
reappointment.
budget committee, I knew I was missing something. Okay, we're moving into budget season and we have three folks who have been on the budget committee who have consented or expressed their wish to stay on the budget committee, which we're very fortunate to have them. So these are reappointments for Dean Catherman, Sarah Meyer, and Randy Staples.
Yeah, I would ask for approval.
Yeah, okay, so I need approval, I need a motion from you folks that we reappoint these folks. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the reappointments of Dean Catherman, Sarah Meyer, and Randy Staples.
Thank you. Yeah. Is it,
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed? Abstain, motion carries, thank you. Thank you, Christie. You're welcome. Okay, so we have come to citizen comments section of this agenda. The first section is, the first set of comments is from, if you are a citizen and if you have comments that are not on the agenda already. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Second is for items that might be on the agenda, that are on the agenda. Does anybody have any comments on any items that are on the agenda? That was quick.
Yep, I see no hands raised at this time.
All right, we're moving on to the consent agenda.
Mayor Watkins, just for council's information, in the meeting minutes, there were two minor corrections. One was a spelling correction and one was a date correction. The spelling is on page 27. Casey Kula's name was spelled incorrectly, and then on page 28, the date was improperly recorded as 2020 instead of 2021. Those changes have been made and will be put in the permanent with those corrections.
Do I have any, a motion to approve the consent agenda as corrected?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Ordinances, resolutions, discussion, and action items. The first item we have on here is our water rate analysis presentation. This is going to be made and presented to us by Deb Gallardi from Gallardi and Associates. I believe I have the business name right. Deb has done our water rate analysis for a number of years. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself. We have other than two people, we have a virtually new council, so and a very inexperienced mayor. So all help from you is appreciated. Thanks.
Okay. Let's make sure you can hear me first. Okay. Now I'm going to share my screen, which is always an interesting process. So, oh, I can't do that yet. I think I need to be enabled to share the presentation.
It does say, here we go. Are you able?
Yep. Looks
Awesome.
good. Okay, let me share. Okay, Caitlin, I'm going to go into presentation mode here. So tell me what you're seeing. Are you seeing the cover slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody, and happy to be back, talk to you about water and sewer rates. This, as was mentioned, has been a many-year process to make a number of changes to the water and sewer rates to both modernize the rate structures themselves, how you charge customers, as well as getting the rates to a level that can support the needed capital investment that needs to occur in the systems, along with just keeping pace with inflation, general inflation, rising costs, and operation and maintenance costs, and things like that. So just a couple of highlights in the historical timeline. In 2016, the city made changes to the water rate structure that implemented the tiered volume rates that you have now, which allows for the lowest volumes of use to be charged at a lower rate than larger volumes of use, preserving the most affordable price for essential water service. It also went to a charges based on meter size. So as the meter gets bigger, the charge increases slightly. For sewer, an important change in 2018 was to go to a volumetric rate that allowed for scaling the rates based on the use of the customer. Used to be a flat fee, no matter how much water you use that returned to the sewer system, you paid the same. So that was an important change in terms of equity and fairness in the rates that was implemented in 2018. So the rate structures are in good shape going forward, and what you're continuing to address is the need to build up the capacity in the rates to pay for the needed capital improvements. In the most recent rate increases in the last 2 years for water were 7% and 8%, and those included the cost of living adjustment, or COLA. You have an automatic COLA increase that's included in your code, and that fluctuates depending on the cost index for each year. But the total rate increases for the last 2 years for water have been the 7% and 8%. For sewer, much more significant rate increases the last 2 years. However, you have to understand that prior to 2018, for several years, you only had cost of living increases. And that's a problem for infrastructure systems that are heavily, a lot of our costs are associated with the capital improvements and the need to replace deteriorating infrastructure that's very old. And also to provide upgrades in the system to address resiliency and regulatory requirements and things like that. So there was a plan to phase in the earlier increases, back in, 5-6 years ago, were really focused on water because you had a need for those significant improvements, which you're in the process of completing and have completed to some extent, like the Meadow Lake transmission line. And so those rate increases were in double digits for a couple of years. And then, so the sewer rates increases were deferred until after that work was completed. And now we see the focus really on sewer and the need to increase those rates. The projected 5-year increases, we do these 5-year plans so that you can be phasing in the rates over multiple years and keep an eye on what's coming down the road. And so those 5-year plans 2 years ago projected the need for water to continue at a 5% per year rate above the cost of living increase, and for sewer, 12% and 4% follow. So the 12% was estimated for this current fiscal year 2022, and 4% each year following. So that's what we were looking at the last time we looked at this. It's important to understand, again, the national trends in rate increases versus inflation. Inflation generally measured by some index like the Consumer Price Index. There's a couple issues with, as I mentioned, the Consumer Price Index does not represent the need to increase rates. And you can see it in this graph that generally rate increases for water and sewer systems have been more than double the rate of inflation because of the need to fund these capital improvements. So if your rates today don't have enough capacity to replace aging water and sewer lines and address the other capital improvements, then a cost of living increase is not going to get you any closer to being able to do that. It's just going to keep pace with the ongoing increases in some areas. But so that's why we see, when we look nationally and certainly regionally, that the rates need to increase more than the cost of living to fund the needed capital improvements. For when we go about this every couple of years, we are doing a cash flow forecasting exercise. These water and sewer utilities are enterprise funds of the city, meaning that they are supported by their own specific revenue streams. Most importantly, the service charges or the rates. There are also systems development charge revenues that can come into play, and we'll talk more about those, that are specifically for capital improvements associated with meeting the needs of growth. And then whatever fund balance or reserves you've built up, you can apply those to the expenses in that period. Operating expenses include the personnel and materials, services, contract services to operate the systems. And then we've got the capital piece, and that includes both debt service to fund prior investments and cash funding of ongoing kind of repair, replacement. Also, the funds contribute to city hall expenses, and so there are, and then there are contingency requirements. We have to be prepared to cover any costs associated with unplanned equipment failures or line breaks or those sorts of things. What drives the forecast, both we have to look at the revenue side of things as well as the expense side of things, is obviously growth and consumption trends. The more customers you add to the system, that expands the revenue that you're earning. It also, to some extent, increases the cost, but most of the costs are really fixed in the short term, meaning that as you add more customers, the costs don't increase proportionately. So the growth does add to the revenue base. It also, to the extent it's new construction, adds systems development charge revenues. Economic factors, things like inflation, and interest earnings. We look at the current operating budget and the capital plans to estimate what's needed in the 5-year period, and then your financial policies, and importantly, for debt service, what requirements that you have in terms of reserves or generating revenue above and beyond both operation and maintenance costs and the debt service, because lending agencies like to see that you are keeping your rates sufficient that you can pay off the debt and continue operating and the system and making replacements as needed. So part of your financial strategy has also been to update some of your systems development charges. Most recently, the sewer SDC was increased to cover specifically the improvements that are identified for growth. And we need to follow Oregon state statutes with respect to how we calculate and charge SDCs. And there are restrictions on the improvement fees that those can only be used for capital, and that capital has to relate to system growth. The revenues are highly variable. They're really good when you have growth occurring, which you do, but they are somewhat variable, and we need to make sure that the rates are there to pay for the debt service and meet the ongoing operation and maintenance needs. As I mentioned, the water SDCs have not been updated for some time, but the sewer SDCs are very current. Okay, so that's kind of the general overview. Let's get into the system specifically. For water, there was one additional staff person that's added, so that we've just in terms of looking at considering where the financial plans were 2 years ago with how the numbers look today. It's you'll see that there's some increase in personnel that results from one additional staff person. Also, the PERS increases related to the retirement, cost of retirement. One-time equipment and meter expenses in the near term. And the prior rate increases really provided that additional revenue for paying off the debt service on the Meadow Lake transmission line construction. The first payment in fiscal year 2020, $165,000, and ongoing for 20 years. But urban renewal funds pay for $65,000 of that new debt service every year. So, and obviously the community was helped greatly by the high level of external funds that came to support that project. So what could have been a much higher rate increases needed actually got moderated by the fact that you had that additional outside support. The initial funding of other master plan projects. So there you have these big projects, but there is this ongoing need to invest in the system for repair, replacement, and doing other things that the master plans identify over a 20-year period. And so these last rate increases put you in a position to both fund this debt service each year, but also to start paying for some of that master plan pipe improvements. And then with SDC revenues, at least in the next 5 years, estimated to average about $250,000 per year, you have a pretty good amount of money coming in from the rates in the SDCs each year to fund your capital. But it's expensive. So you can see in this table, this is the 5-year plan. The largest part up here, a lot of grant funding for the big ticket items, 7.9 million. Then these other improvements, which are mostly improvements to water lines, but also some reservoir maintenance. And those improvements, and then this line down here, the master plan projects, which, those can fluctuate from year to year based on need, priority, but the estimate is about $1 million over the planning period. So the subtotal of the rate and SDC funded projects is about 3.2 million. So that averages about 650,000 a year. As I mentioned, 250,000 we're estimating from SDC revenue, but that's still means that the rates need to support a few $100,000 over the next 5-year period. So graphically, what that looks like is in this chart, you've got the bars, the colored bars, which represent different types of expenses. The dark blue is the personnel, staffing costs, other O&M, operation and maintenance costs are in the green. And then these capital transfers, that's to fund that's the cash to fund those other CIP projects that aren't, covered by the debt or the grant. And then you've got the debt service transfers in kind of the orange color. And you can see the blue line here is the revenues. So in years where the revenues aren't sufficient to cover the stacked bars, then at the bottom of the chart, you see a dip in the beginning fund balance of the next year because you're using your reserves or your fund balance to pay for a portion of the projects or pay for a portion of the costs. With the rate increase, which I'm happy to say we have reduced significantly from the prior forecast. So it's specifically 4.3% annual increases, including the COLA. So that's down a couple of percentage points. After fiscal year 2022 is 3.8%, which includes 1.8% for COLA and then another 2%. So 3.8% the first year, 4.3% forecast each year after. That is projected to, put you on a path where you can rebuild your fund balance and pay for the needed capital that's in this planning period. I will say that, that this is somewhat dependent on that SDC revenue, that new growth, both in terms of new customers coming in, as well as generating the new construction, which is helping to support some of this these capital projects. So if those change, and that's really a big part of why the rate increase has been reduced, is because of that additional growth. And we're projecting an increase in revenue just from expansion of the customer base and that additional SDC revenue. Sewer is not quite as rosy, and that's, as I mentioned, really the prior to the last 2 years where you began ramping up more steeply the sewer rate increase. The prior increases were not sufficient to keep pace with the needed capital expenditures. So for personnel, there isn't new staff, but those continued PERS increases, some one-time equipment and expenses in the near term. The prior rate increase really just got you a bare minimum amount of capital spending, and it was to fund the sewer funds portion of the city hall transfer, to support the improvements for city hall, and some minimal pipe improvements. So you haven't gotten to the place yet where you have built the capacity to pay off a fairly significant debt that's coming on with construction of the wastewater treatment plant improvements. And that debt payment is estimated to be about $400,000 per year beginning in fiscal year 2025. So you've got still a bit of a steep climb. The SDC revenue here for this system is also estimated to be about $250,000 a year, but the needed increases to support the debt that's going to be coming down the road in a few years is significant. So $6 million for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade to be debt funded, and then there are some additional improvements that are needed to for other elements of the system, the pump station and some pipe replacement. A lot of that can be funded by the SDCs, but there's additional cash funding that's going to need to come from the rates as well. So here's what that plan looks like. Here we've got one more double-digit rate increase that was projected last time as well, because we knew this debt was coming. It's actually, though, higher than the increased construction costs have increased more than the prior plan had anticipated. So the 12% stays the same, but the future years for a few years is estimated to be 6%, including the cost of living. So it's, and cost of living has averaged about 2% or so. So another 4% on top of that for these first few years. And you can see, because when that debt, these orange bars really increase here at the end. And the reason the first year in the 24-25 is bigger is because you have to fund interest earnings that have accrued, or interest costs that have accrued during the time of construction of the facilities. And we're at this point anticipating that you may also have to have a reserve. You may not. It's going to be dependent on what kind of financing package the state, or we're assuming it's going to be a state agency, provides. So it's possible that when we look at this in a couple of years, once that's been secured, that those outer year rate increases can come down a little bit. But right now, you've got to stay on a path to get to where you can fund that debt, because those improvements are needed. I understand, even to allow for additional growth to occur. So same thing here with respect to the minimum, the beginning fund balance down here at the light blue line. You can see it actually drops slightly below what the desired contingency is in this case. However, it's far enough out there that I think, because of your disciplined looking at the rates every year or two, that you have time to adjust as needed. And we're hoping that the financing package is going to be more favorable than what we've used here. So to summarize, continued rate increases need to build that capacity for funding, both the debt service and the cash funding of the improvements. The cost of living adjustments are important, but they're not sufficient when we're talking about utilities. And in your case, particularly given where the sewer funding is. The prior rate structure adjustments have improved the rate equity and helped you continue to maintain revenue stability. And the sewer increases can be revised in a couple of years based on once that funding package has been identified and the interest rates have been, locked in and all of that. And there are additional improvements beyond the 5 years. So you have to look at this as a long-term planning effort. And that's why you continue to monitor and make adjustments every year or two. But the good news is once you get the rates to a certain level to be able to fund ongoing capital improvements, then they certainly can, moderate any of those large spikes like we've had to see in the last 5 years. So with that, I will be happy to answer questions.
She's done. Okay. Thanks. That's true. Thanks, Morgan. Okay. Are we ready? Hey, council, do you have any questions for Deb Gallardi? Comments, thoughts? Councilor Skipper.
Hey Deb, you mentioned SDCs are allowed for capital improvements only. I thought you mentioned something about also only in regards to system growth. Can you touch on that or expand on that for me, please?
Yes. So under Oregon statutes, the SDCs are comprised of two components. There's a reimbursement fee and an improvement fee. The revenue that comes from the reimbursement fee can be used for any type of capital improvement, as long as it's for the system that you've collected the funds. So you can spend water SDC reimbursement fee on any water-related capital improvement, including debt service. The improvement fee is more restricted in that it has to be spent according to a project list that you have adopted and identified which portions of projects are related to increasing capacity for growth. So when you do an upgrade of a pipeline or a pump station, if part of that improvement is to replace existing capacity that's serving existing development, that portion of that improvement is not eligible for improvement SDC funds. So it's very much, the SDCs are not meant to basically be your vehicle to just repair and replace facilities. They're meant to be used to offset the cost of expanding facilities to meet the needs of future development. Does that help?
That was, thank you. And then a quick question that you're probably aware of is that, and you might be talking with Christy and Shannon about, is, we're gonna have to take our reservoir offline at some point in time to do the dredging. Is that going to affect rates when we have a contract with McMinnville Water and Light to provide power, or does that, everything kind of stays the same?
I'm not in that scenario. to the extent that it's in the any additional capital related cost or any impact on the operation and maintenance costs is in the forecast, we've got it covered. I'm not sure where that particular item is and would need some help from city staff to address that.
So, Kevin, so how it's going to work when that water line goes off and with our agreement with Mac Water and Light, which we're in process and negotiating that will be all tied into grant. That's not being taken forward to the community.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is there,
Yeah. Counselor Skipper.
sorry, I just wanted to, is there a way that, Deb, you could send this to Shannon to forward the presentation to the council, please?
That's what I was just gonna say. So we'll forward that on, and we'll also make it available for our citizens and have it on the website. Counselor Erickson.
You're offline.
So with this, bottom line, when people in the community come up and ask me what the increase is going to be, where are we at?
For the current year, the water rate increase, so this would be July 1 of 2021, which is fiscal year 2022. The total increase is 3.8% for water, and for sewer, 12%.
Okay, so we're going to have a 15.8% increase in water coming July something, right? Is that it?
You're combining water, both waters, the wastewater
Right.
and the water. Yes.
Yeah, people want to know the total amount. So 15.8% for everything. Water, sewer complete for 2021.
2021, 22.
2021 to 2020, yeah, 2022 until July of 2022.
Correct.
Is that, am I hearing you correct there?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Counselor Warren Mullen? Were you, yeah. Now? Can't hear you.
There we go.
No, I was just stretching my arm, sorry.
Oh. I was wondering.
Council, just for your information for our surrounding communities, Yamhill for the next 2 years will be increasing 17% for their water and sewer. Lafayette is going to be 3%. Willamina is 5%, and that's for each. McMinnville water, it looks, and these are all projected, they're doing their budgets right now, is 2.3. Just to kind of give you a comparison on where that sits in our sister cities. Mac Water and Light is going to be coming into actually even more projects as they move forward. And so you'll see some increases on as they go to construction. But that's further down the road. And then Yamhill is struggling with that, getting their infrastructure up. So their increases are a little higher than normal, but they're trying to prepare for growth.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? For Deb? All righty, I think, oh, Jeremy.
Sorry, since we're talking about the rates, So are we looking at 9% every year after next year then? Increases?
So for water, the combined COLA and not, other component is 4.3% throughout for the next few years, let's say. For sewer, it's about 6%. And again, hopefully, which is up from the 4% that we had projected previously because of the increase in the plant construction costs. But my hope is in the next year or two, as you get the specifics on the financing, that can, maybe come down a bit. But yeah, for the next 2 years, as was discussed, for the first year is that 15%, then that is drops to the 4 plus the 6 in the next fiscal year. So still significant, but less than what you're facing July 1 of this year.
Okay. Thank you.
It looks like Councilor Skipper has a question.
Councilor Skipper.
Thank you. And so when you say includes the COLA, I know you mentioned that the average COLA is generally around 2%. So that could fluctuate. If COLA comes in higher, it could be more than the 4.3, correct?
That is correct. And Christy can jump in, but I think generally if that's the case, if inflation is going to increase, as some say, are fearing, then you could back off on the other rate increase, because we've projected a total, for my projections, I look at what the total is, where it's coming from, the COLA or from the other component. It doesn't much matter. It's still, we just need that total percent.
Okay, thank you. So it is you answered my question. I think you're able to back it off if COLA goes up. Thank you.
Councilor Erickson and then Councilor Eglin.
So at what point in time can you project we would get to a basic, just a cost of living increase? What year? Where do you think we're at?
It's possible that towards the end of this 5-year period for water that you could get there. It's because you have some debt that, so, you just, I talked about the debt associated with the large projects that just came on, and the debt started repayment in FY 2020, fiscal year 2020. There's existing debt associated with prior investments that you're still paying. Some of that will begin to drop off. And right now we've put in kind of an average estimate of what additional master plan projects are needed, but I'm assuming that will get refined and those priorities looked at, closer as we get, you take a short-term period and identify what are the priorities in that period, and then out a ways we just make some assumptions.
So maybe 2027 we can get to.
It's possible. It really depends again on what the engineers say you need to do in terms of in the short term, in that intermediate term. But and as that debt drops off, it's very possible that you could get back on water to a cost of living increase. My understanding is that there's another fairly large project coming on for sewer, so I'm not as optimistic about that. But I think water's looking in pretty good shape.
Councilor.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Christy, thanks for the percentages you gave us for the other cities. Do you know what their average rate is? Is it comparable to ours?
Ours is higher. We've got some significant debt that is keeping our rates above, to fix. We had failing infrastructures, and if you noticed in the, timeline, we had 52 years where we didn't do much as a city to take care of our infrastructure. So in 2012 is when, those rates started to, increase to pay for the water, which is almost leveled off now, and thank heavens we got, $10 million worth of grants to drive that down, and now we're addressing the sewer. And that sewer, once we take that debt on, is gonna be a good 25 year period. And I do have a comparison chart that I can send you out. It's not in this packet. We are working on it today because we have to go through to projections for our surrounding cities. The only reason we know for sure is Yamhill's is, we found that in one of their meeting minutes, and Yamhill has, McMinnville has a proposed, but I can send you what we've got. Morgan did do a nice chart showing it. I can tell you, ours is running at about an average. It'll be about 160 with this new rate increase. And probably the closest I believe was it Lafayette or?
Lafayette was pretty close, yeah.
Lafayette was pretty close, but Lafayette just had to buy into the McMinnville water and light system, so they're doing some recoup. Deb is definitely correct. Our water is starting to stabilize. And what we do have these DEQ required sewer projects, and then we have some other failing infrastructure that has not been done for years. So I can't project how we're gonna, every 2 years, we should really take a hard look. We had a very conservative eye on this particular projection. We know that our current community is taking the brunt of 52 years of no repair work. So Deb really had a conservative approach, and so we were happy to see that water was going to be lower than what we projected, and that even as so much as the sewer can go down in FY23. So
Thank you. Just one other thing, and this is probably too much in the details, but I know that there's probably a number of folks that are retired and on fixed incomes, and I was wondering if there's any way we can look at that scenario. And I don't know. I know it's too much in the details, but just a thought.
Well, I like that thought, and in particular the seniors. I think we brought it up a couple of meetings ago. Some for our seniors who are living on those fixed incomes and on some type of programs. We have not started the investigation, but if council directs us to do so, we'll look into some senior programs.
Folks, do you want to go ahead and ask Christy to look into those right now while we're thinking about it?
I would. I don't know about everyone else, but thank you.
I'd be interested.
Me too.
Works for me. Okay. Councilor Erickson.
I got a question. There was an issue quite a few years ago with a contractor having to pay, suing, different things. Has that whole process, has that been paid off? Are we still paying for that, or is that over and done with?
That was over and done with. I don't know what year. It's not on the city's books.
Okay, so that's not even in the equation right now of current water problems, rates and everything.
That is correct. So we paid it.
Okay. Thank you.
I think Christie's correct on that. I think that was paid off sometime around 2015 or so.
Thank you, Walt.
Thank you, Walt.
All righty. Thank you, Deb. That was really nice. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions for Deb or for Christy or? Okay, so we've made some decisions on what we're gonna be sitting on.
Yeah, and this will come forward again during the budget process and in the budget message and also there's one other place. So you'll see this again. It's gonna come forward to the budget committee.
Saying that again.
Mhm.
All righty, moving on. We are at item B, YCTC special event in Winterberg Park, application and request.
So I'll speak to this. Amy couldn't be here tonight. YCTC is asked to have an event down in the park on June 19th. They want to use it as a summer solstice and they're going to do a fun run. And in their packet, they do have COVID concessions. It does include alcohol and they're wanting to reserve shelter 3 for first aid. They have yet several different levels of plans for COVID in the back, and they're asking for council to approve that they can hold that event. So, any questions?
Guillerme.
Councilor Randall?
Yes. So I was looking at the page 80 when it talks about security. And it says it's required to have security, and here they mark no. So is that a concern? Is that something that needs to be addressed?
So they did mark no, if they, and it says it's required if you have more than 50 people. And I don't. And I think their projection is above, so I think you're right, Jeremy, they need to have security and they can, like Fun Days has, staff that stays there all night. I'm trying to look at the.
It says in their estimated attendance is 200.
Yeah, so in your approval, you would require that in the approval, and then that would get changed.
It looks like they said that their volunteer staff will be monitors and be the security. I don't think they're gonna hire a security.
Yeah, they're not required to hire, so they,
Right,
maybe they just, incorrectly marked that box, but we'll make sure,
right.
yeah.
But doesn't it say licensed professional? If it's just volunteers, it's not licensed professionals.
It does not have to be. Oh, it does say not licensed.
Yeah.
Security required if you have more than 50 people. Have you hired?
So that would be up for you guys to determine if you wanted licensed security. Typically, these events have not been licensed, they've been volunteers. Yes, sure.
Oh, well, in other events, like we used to have Walk in the Park or Carlton Crush, down there, haven't we always had, and especially if they have a fun run and people are going to be, jogging, to have folks there from the fire department and the police department?
The police department does extra patrol. Fire department is not required if they have a first aid station, and they do address the first aid station.
I think that our form says security and then there's 2 types and they're going to offer to have volunteers for the security. And I think that's what's done, it has been done in the past for other events.
It has to be done that way.
Professional security company, so. I think it's okay personally. I think that's what they mean by it.
Looks like we've got 3 people there.
And my other issue is that if we are still having problems with coronavirus, I don't know if we want to have an event. I hope we will be all vaccinated by, is it July? But we don't have estimates right now.
Given that it's June. Yeah.
Won't we be constrained by the state requirements for outdoor gatherings for COVID?
If the state requirements change, you would be constrained for an outdoor event. Currently, 200 is the amount, but if it moves from low to moderate, that we could have that constraint. And I'm trying to see, I think she addressed with her COVID.
I doubt this, the applications probably don't even address COVID. These applications.
And in there, you did see that they did put an application in there for amplified noise. They are going to have a live band down there. So they have alcohol.
What are we looking for?
The COVID requirements. So you could, in your motion, you could say that if the COVID level changes, then the attendance would have to change. We're just currently right now working with fund days under the same circumstance, and they're going to be presenting you with 3 different levels of COVID actions.
It's page 101, Christie.
101.
Especially that supplement.
So it does not have a second layer plan in this particular packet. It only has the first layer plan at low risk.
Would we make just a motion then based on the low risk?
I think that would be if it remains in low risk. OLCC is going to hold them to the COVID regulations too. So I think the motion would be for the low risk.
Maybe Walt can answer this. I don't see any issues as long as they're meeting all the city's guidelines and the state's guidelines and OLCC's guidelines. I don't know what predicament we put them in if we just tie it to a low risk and then we can give them adaptability to change it to moderate, change the numbers. So is there any kind of motion where we can put to just, as long as they're meeting all requirements they're allowed to have this event?
Yeah, that would cover it if they decided to alter or stagger the attendance. So to meet a different risk level.
There we go.
I think you can qualify the motion to make it that it's subject to the requirements of the governor's executive orders relating to outside gatherings. And that way it's flexible.
At any risk level? At what the risk level is?
So it would be a flexible approval. The approval would be only for the number of persons that are permitted to be assembling in an outdoor context subject to the governor's restrictions on those events. So that would be incorporated into your approval. And as those change, the approval would change with it. So they might have to modify their event to conform, but they're going to have to do that anyhow.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, but I'm gonna struggle on the wording, Walt, so.
I think the motion could be to approve the program subject to compliance with the governor's executive orders for outside events and those conditions contained in those executive orders.
Counselor Erickson?
So if it all goes right, 200 people, how are they going to monitor that? Are they going to have somebody standing counting people going in, going out? Do they have a designated person doing that?
Christy DeGroat was supposed to be online tonight, so I don't know if she had difficulties. She was going to speak to the totality and the plan. I do know they're having security and alcohol monitors on there, bringing fencing in. I did not see specifically if she addressed the count of how many people are going in.
I mean, that'd be a concern of mine. If we're only allowed 200 people, there's got to be somebody there that's going to say, okay, there's 199 in there, one more go in. Nobody can go in until 4 or 5 come out, type of thing.
They've got enough of a bottleneck right at the entrance. They should be able to control that,
But have they designated or specified that they've got somebody that's going to take care of that?
Are they ultimately liable to that, Walt? Or, I mean, do we necessarily have to be concerned about that, or is the city in any way liable if they violate any of the governor's executive order?
I'm not terribly worried about the city being penalized by the governor's office, but I do think that the approval by the city, if it incorporates the requirements of only 200 people, can be explicit in that it requires them to control the number of people to comply with that order.
And I can't find in my paperwork, I looked here, but it seems the number of wash stations under this whole COVID thing, the wash stations and the porta potties seem to be on a very low side for the number, for 200 people. And if someone can find that number, they pointed it out, but I just can't seem to find that in the paperwork as of right now.
Well, they said that they'd have 3 portable toilets, 1 ADA approved portable toilet, and 2 wash stations.
So is there a state standard or some kind of a standard for number of people to how many they need type of thing? I mean, is there a?
are they assuming that that's in addition to what already exists down there?
Mhm.
Because we'll have the city, we have the outhouse, 2, 3.
And we're having several more delivered, so.
Yeah, we'll have about 5 down there anyway.
And they did say that they will be monitoring and taking care of the toilets and wash stations during the event.
Okay, I've been to these events before, and it seems sometimes that they're lacking on that facility for the people involved. So that's my question on that.
Counselor Skipper?
Oh, I was just going to mention, I mean, I understand I think these are all great points, but I have faith in YCTC that, they've run many programs and different things in our community for many years. I mean, obviously we want to make sure our concerns are heard and addressed. And I don't know, it's a fun run. So I don't know if the 200 people they're estimating that, I know when I go do runs or walks or whatever, I leave immediately after. So I don't know if that number's, the number of joggers or runners they're anticipating, but Yeah, I don't hesitate with the YCTC organization. I guess I just wanted to point out. I have a good feeling that they'll do what's necessary and proper.
Councilor Brandau.
I think it's a unnecessary risk right now, especially without the specifications and the numbers. I think this type of event would be really hard to monitor how many people are coming and going. So I think it's in my opinion, unnecessary risk.
Councilor Eglett.
I think if we put our concerns down and they hear what we say, that they'll follow our concerns. And I don't hesitate, as Kevin said, with the YCTC organization following the rules.
Well, do we have a motion, folks? Anybody?
Kevin, you get to.
Okay, so I'm ready to do it, but I guess I don't know being new to this, I don't know the proper wording. And so Walt, can you just help me with that, please? Or tell me if I have to repeat it, or if you can say it and I can make it.
I think a motion to approve the application subject to the requirement of compliance with the governor's COVID requirements and others and normal city regulations for the holding of gatherings in the city park.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
You might do roll call.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Mayor Linda Watkins,
Aye.
Council President Shirley Ward Mullen,
Aye.
Councilor Kevin Skipper,
Aye.
Councilor Guilherme Brandao,
No.
Councilor Grant Erickson,
I'm for it, but I think we need to do a control on the number of people. So I don't know how that plays out.
You have a motion before you, Grant, so you would be a aye or nay with the standing motion.
Yes, no, or abstain?
I guess abstain then, because I'm for the event, but I think we need to have a control on the number of people if we're limited to 200.
Okay.
So I don't know how that works in.
Councilor Jamie Eglin,
Aye, yes.
and Councilor Kathy Maher. Aye. All right.
Yes.
Okay, 5 yes, the motion passes.
And for council, I will follow up with YCTC. I will talk to them about the attendance. I will also find out how many people per restrooms to make sure that they meet those guidelines and that they understand that they will need to be flexible in their attendance if the governor's guidelines change. If there's anything else I need to address.
Okay, moving on. Item C, the buyback program completion.
So yes, we are coming before you today and asking for a motion to conclude the buyback relief program. Phase 2 for the restaurants, they now can do indoor seating. And that's the reason we reenacted it, was that they had no inside seating at that time. So we're asking council to approve and conclude the buyback relief program.
Do I have a motion?
Oh,
I
Shirley.
move that we conclude the buyback relief program.
Is there a second?
Kathy did.
Kathy was a second. Yeah.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. And pool and city hall opening discussion. This is discussion. Okay, yeah, so this is discussion, Mayor, and I promise, I know this is Shannon's first week, but you won't have to hear me talking at every meeting. And so we're bringing for you two considerations. The memorandum for the first discussion that is on page 107 just talks about the pool, but at the last minute, we were talking about city hall, so we'd like you to consider two things. One is I'd like to talk about the pool. So you had a chart included in your packet. The pool is a benefit the city provides to our citizens. It usually runs around a $60,000 to $70,000 loss, depending on the needs of the equipment. This current year is only running about, so the pool season also crosses 2 fiscal periods. So you can't look at it in a normal budget. We receive a lot of the revenue selling the pool passes in June. And so that fills up the budget for the previous year that started in July. And then the next significant income is July 1 as the pool's open. So that revenue is split, the costs are kind of split, and that's why you're seeing that low loss at 17,000 because we didn't open the pool. We do have continuing expenses. We've got power. They're all lower amounts. We didn't do capital outlay. So our current guidelines, which I attached for outdoor recreation for outdoor pools, we can only run it at 50% capacity. The city cannot sell pool passes like they did in the past. And the reason why, with that limited capacity, people, once they buy a pass, have an anticipation that they will be able to access the pool. And it comes up often on hot days. We get a multitude of complaints and saying, you're denying us access because the pool's full. We can only have 125 people in the pool. And reducing that access down to 50% means we would be turning away people on pool passes on a continual basis. So we are going to be meeting with the pool manager, Sabrina Forshee. She's managed the last 2 years. We're going to come up with a game plan how we're going to run it 50%. If you guys approve or decide to go forward, we're going to increase. Swim lessons are approved in these new guidelines, and the instructor can be close to them in the pool as they do that. We're going to try some increase the family designated time so that we can have some grouping and increase some capacity, increase some lap swims. And then during the general swim, it will just be a general admission because it's going to be a large turnaway. I can tell you that the children get highly disappointed. It is a highlight. People from other cities come to the Carlton pool and during the summer, and we have been getting calls nonstop trying to determine if we're going to open or not. So opening the pool will add an additional $30,000 loss estimated. We won't have an actual feel of it because we don't know how that revenue is going to land at that 50% capacity, trying to guess how many people are going to do different areas. We do not want to increase the rates as if we're going to be limiting that capacity for the kids to come swim. I think the general fund can sustain that additional loss, and I've worked the budget numbers, but the general fund will take the loss. If that, it gives you guys some guidance for discussion. Councilor Maher.
We still are unable to hear you.
Can she text you? Do you want to text me, Kathy? Well, Kathy's working on her message. Everybody else can ask questions. Councilor Eglin.
Oh, I just want to make a comment that I hope that we vote to open up the pool, even at 50%. It's a highlight for the kids and families, and we need something to look forward to this year. So.
And I can tell you that we will have, so they have to, obviously the temperature, and we can only allow so many people in the locker rooms. We have to have someone that monitors the locker rooms. We have to change the staffing a little, almost like a COVID monitor, and we have to change some other procedures, but we can still do it at a 50% capacity where it's viable. And then Councilor Maher did have an opportunity to text us and maybe possibly limiting pool time. So as someone comes in to like an hour, 2 hours, or having some kind of limitation so that other children can have that opportunity and rotate out. And if there's no one there, they can rotate back in. That's an option. I think the city would really welcome all kinds of ideas before we meet with our pool manager on if you think of anything that's viable or a good idea that we can really work the numbers and how's it gonna work, how many guards do we need. We did post the ad before this meeting because it's time for Red Cross recertifications for lifeguards who didn't re-up last year. And so we wanted to give them opportunity, but it is contingent upon if we decide to open.
And where we are now, did you see today's announcement from the governor?
For all vaccinations?
No, not that one. What they did was they said there are 4 counties that are on warning. We have 2 weeks warning.
I did not see that yet.
Yeah, we've got 2-week warning to get our numbers back down. Yamhill County does. We are right now in low, and they said we've got 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, if we're not improved, we'll go back to moderate, which puts us at 25%.
25%, and we cannot open the pool at that big of a loss at 25%.
So any friends, anybody you know in Yamhill County, please tell them to do everything they can to pull our numbers down. We're hoping that that will happen, but that was her announcement this afternoon. It was a press release that came out.
So I do think the city should do some social media posting about that we're in a warning situation on our Instagram, our website, our Nextdoor. What if you guys could do the same? I sure would like to keep us in low for our businesses, and I'm very passionate about the pool and trying to get some kind of opening strategy for the pool, but at 25%, we can't sustain that big of a loss.
Thank you.
Councilor Ward,
Yeah, so I really agree with Jamie that, I hope upon all hopes that we can open this pool this year for these children. They've missed out on so much. And, if it has to go another year. I did read the report from the governor's office today about that we're under that 2-week warning. But, if it does go back to moderate, I'm suspecting that it might just be for a very short duration. I mean, I hope it doesn't, but it still doesn't preclude us, from thinking about opening the pool at the end of May or June, depending on where the numbers are then. And I also agree with Kathy about, having timeframes for kids so that everybody has the opportunity to use the pool. In other words, a kid can't come at 8 in the morning and stay till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's what I would have done when I was a kid, but, to give all the kids a chance.
one of the things that I did learn today was, and I think it was in the governor's announcement about the ratings, is that this time around, they're starting to also look at, to include the number of hospitalizations, what's happening with those as far as increasing or decreasing. So they're factoring that into the count that they're doing, which could give us a little bit of encouragement and hope. If we're getting vaccinations and we're getting that taken care of and we're reducing the number of people in the county that are going in for hospitalization, that will help reduce our number a little bit more. They haven't been factoring that hospitalizations in up till now. So I guess all I can do is just say, encourage people to be careful and take care of yourselves and try to pull that number back down. We have a 2-week warning. Councilor Brandeo.
Well, I think I have the same issue with the park activity. I think we need to be safe. We're in the end of the pandemic. I see no reason why to rush things, and I think we need to wait at this point, especially if we are not improving and possibly going to the median. That's my opinion. I think we just need to be patient and wait until this ends and we all get vaccinated, and not have to worry about things like that and worrying about the numbers and the time, and actually open things, not just have limitations and thinking about whatever is going to happen.
Councilor Erickson.
So, at 50%, if it turns out we can run the pool at 50%, what's that number? How many people or kids, adults, whatever, what's the number?
So we can have in the pool 125 people.
And that's at 50%?
Yes.
Okay, so you got 125 people.
Oh, I'm sorry, 50% of 125. 125 is capacity.
Okay, so you're looking at 50, 60 people, around 60 people. What is the price? I mean, I don't know. What does it cost to go swimming?
Well, a pool pass for in town.
We aren't doing pool passes, right? I mean, what's it cost just to show up and pay your dues to go in and swim?
You're looking at $3.
Okay. So you got 75 people. So it's $225. So do we, to make that work at 50%, as it was stated about doing certain times, do we just sell time slots, 1 hour time slots that people can come and go to make that fall in?
The amount to staff that would be not manageable. But you also have to take into account there's other components. If we're going to limit to an hour, we would have to reduce the fee. $3 is for a full day's usage. There's also going to be swim lessons. That's a different fee. And then usually the 4th grade class comes in for a week of swim lessons. So there's a multitude of different components that would be moving into that pool. And to try to manage switching people out every hour, we'd have to have one staff person constantly on that, and we just do not have the staffing to do that. And
okay, so to run the pool at 50%, and how long is the pool open? What's the time frame?
Well, there's different time frames for open swim. We have not, until we meet with the pool manager and determine how we're going to alter this to give open swim versus swim lessons versus swim laps and family swim, and how is that going to look? So until that, we won't know. I don't have an answer to give you. It isn't just showing up to go swimming.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to figure out. So to operate the pool, every day the pool's open, what's the price tag for the city?
I'd have to full season, the price tag to the city to supply that service is about 60 to 70,000 per season over a 3-month period.
60 to 70, you say?
Yes.
Okay, let's say 65,000.
And that's a normal. Hey, Grant, if you'd like to shoot me some financial stuff, I can work it up, because some of the things.
I'm just trying to think, if you're only charging $3 a person, and we're charging, and it costs us that much, I mean, the city's gonna be in the negative quite a bit to run the pool.
We will run it on a very broad stroke estimation, the additional 30,000 loss at 50% capacity.
And that's 30,000 a month possibly
No,
loss?
30,000 over the 3 months.
Over the 3 months, okay. So 10,000 a month, basically, what we're gonna lose.
Yes, but you have to remember the pool is a service to the community. It's already in a loss situation under normal operations as a community benefit to have it in our city. And
Yeah, I understand that.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Do you need a motion from us?
Yes, yeah, motion. I think it's time.
Mhm.
So it's a motion to open the pool at,
The 50% capacity, the low risk category.
so I move that we open the pool with 50% capacity, which is at low risk currently.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Should we do a roll call? for
You
this
probably
one?
should do roll call, it's
Okay.
too confusing.
Yeah, okay, roll call vote. Sorry, guys. Roll call.
Mayor Linda Watkins,
Aye.
Council President Shirley Ward Mullen,
Aye.
Councilor Kevin Skipper,
Aye.
Councilor Guillermo Brandeo,
Nay.
Councilor Grant Erickson,
Nay.
Councilor Jamie Igland,
Yes, aye.
Councilor Kathy Maher. Aye.
Okay, let's see. We have an, okay. Motion passes.
So the added component here is City Hall. City Hall remains with closed doors. If they show up, they're doing their payments outside. And then if they call, they can come in if they have an appointment or business that needs to be handled at the counter. Only one person is allowed in. We've had 0 complaints. City Hall staff has diligently answers the phone, not only during business hours, but the phones forward to another phone, and a lot of times those are answered or taken care of right away. So we're not in a hurry to open City Hall, and under the news that we might move to moderate and low risk, we wanted council to consider if they felt that in the next month or so, as the numbers declined, if they thought we should start to open the doors, only having one in. I can tell you that it staffs differently, because as each person comes in, we have to close the doors, re-sanitize, and then reopen for the next. So it is a big staffing procedure. What that is for you guys to consider. I don't think we need to do it right this minute, but as numbers decline, we should consider reopening City Hall.
Is there any discussion? Councilor Ward Mullen.
I think we should reevaluate at the next city council meeting. I think we can let it go another month. Everything is going fine, and a month from now, we might have a much better assessment of where we're headed.
Any other comments? Okay, do we have Do we need a motion on this one, Mary? No, that was just a discussion, so we can have some guidance to make sure that we got council in the loop and how we should proceed. Okay. Okay, moving on. Resolution number 2021-308, changing signers on First Federal Bank account. Yes, Mayor Watkins. So this is a business only. On our checking account, we have 4 signers that are to be on it. One is the city manager, the assistant city manager, the mayor, and the council president. The only reason we held off on this was we were waiting for our new city manager so we could do the business all at once. This will be adding Linda Watkins and Shannon Beaucaire to the checking account at First Federal. It is required by resolution to add signers.
And I might mention that it takes 2 to sign a check, so just, I'm not gonna get the checkbook and run with it.
No, it takes 2 signatures, and any check that is signed has to have backup invoicing behind it, so it tells the tail of the check.
Councilor Ward Mullen?
I'm looking at the resolution. Why does it say designating certain individuals to transact business with Umpqua Bank? I'm confused.
Mine says First Federal.
Mine says Umpqua.
Where, let's see, First Federal.
I wonder if that was from something previous.
Oh, it's in the letter.
Oh, it's on the resolution itself, it does say First Federal.
Where's the resolution? I'm reading recommendation background.
The resolution is on page 123.
Oh, okay.
So, sorry, Councilor Ward Mullen, we often use templates from prior resolutions as we do the same business.
Do we need to read this resolution?
Just a resolution of the, basically the first line of the resolution is a resolution of the city council of the city of Carlton designating certain individuals to transact business with First Federal Savings and Loan.
I make a motion that we, the city council approve and authorize the mayor to sign resolution number 2021-308 designating certain individuals to transact business with First Federal Savings and Loan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Kathy seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution has been approved. Thanks, guys. So where are we going with? All right, thank you. I think that pretty much, all righty, I think we used to do this and we kind of got out of the habit, so we're done with anything. Does anybody have anything else to add or questions? Or the other thing I would like to know is, do any of you have any items that you would like to see on future agendas? Is there stuff that you've thought about over the last month that you think you'd kind of like to maybe have a discussion or agenda item with the council on?
Mayor, if I could comment just on one item that was discussed earlier in the meeting. Council member Erickson had inquired whether the water rates reflected any portion of the water rates reflected payment of outstanding costs from the 2001 through 2004 water project that resulted in some litigation with Stanley Construction. My recollection was that it was a 10-year bond that the city, a revenue bond that the city floated to pay that off at that time. While you were having discussion on other matters, I looked at your city audit. It looks to me like it's still outstanding, Christy. That it was a 2000 and 7 issue, which I thought would finish maturing in 10 years, but it looks like it either was refunded or was initially a 20-year issue. I recall it as a 10-year issue, but it may have been refunded, as many issues have been, in order to reduce interest rates. It looks like to me that it will be fully paid in 2026 or 2027.
Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Walt. A lot of times bonds have no descriptor sitting behind them as they age.
Yeah.
So there you have it. All right, no other questions, comments? Okay. Oops, did you raise your hand, Grant? You did.
Yes.
Okay. Speak for it.
I would like to put on to do discussion. I've been downtown Carlton Saturday morning around the bakery, and I have noticed multiple people, bicyclists mainly, show up, park their cars, unload their bikes, take off and ride around the countryside. They're gone for several hours, taking up parking spaces that I feel that are needed for customers of the businesses that are coming and going throughout the day. Is there somehow, do we need to designate a certain area for this particular activity for parking? Do we need to then start putting time limits on parking throughout town? I just see that this is for the businesses in town, for their customers that are coming and going. Parking we all know is pretty limited in the downtown area. And if we have people showing up, parking, and then taking off for 3 or 4 hours on a bicycle ride, and I know I'm picking on the bicycle people because that's what I've seen that have been doing this. That's my question to all of you. Do you got any kind of comments, thoughts? Do we need to chew on this or what?
Okay, let's put that on a future agenda. We'll look at parking and parking limits and see what, have a discussion about that and put it out there for April already. We'll try to put it out there on May. Thank you.
Okay.
Something we need to do. Anybody else got any thoughts, comments? Guillermo?
I just wanted to throw out there, is there any way we could think about subsidizing the water and sewage to lower the cost? Like use some of the city revenues or something like that?
Guillermo, we can put kind of education on the, maybe the budgeting or the accounting method. So a water fund, the revenues and the expenses run out of a water fund. And so you would be, we budget for, it's like its own mini budget, and the sewer is on its own budget, and then it transfers out to project work for those two funds. Sometimes that's confusing to understand, so maybe what you're asking is for future discussion is how can we reduce water rates in those funds? The hard part is both of those funds are carrying debt that fix the infrastructure, and then the other funds have their own revenues and their own expenses and how that balances and work. But it's worth a discussion and some educational components. Put that on the list.
Thank you.
Okay, Grant.
One more, if maybe Chrissy can bring us up to date, kind of, sort of. There's been chatter on the media about sidewalk grants for the city of Carlton. I was kind of blindsided about when I heard about this. There's people in town, I guess certain person in town has been talking to people about this. Where are we at with this? Is this something that's going on? Does the city even know about it? Where are we at?
Great question, Grant. So we did have a citizen reach out to ODOT, in particular into smart growth and sidewalks centered around the safety of our children. They, citizen did come back to the city and say, hey, there's some grant opportunities. The city has arranged a meeting to work with ODOT, take a look at it, and the city manager, the mayor, and myself will be in attendance. Those grants do not fund until FY23. There's no urgency. We are working on it. We were very grateful to the citizen that found these other grant opportunities. In the meantime, the mayor also came across something else for sidewalks that we're working on. What happened, I think, in the excitement of presenting this possible grant in FY23, they might have created some energy that it was urgent and right, this had to be happening right now. But they're just excited about the project, and so the Facebook went live before we even have a first meeting with all the staff. And I can tell you that ODOT said that they will help walk us through the grants. There's 2 available, but they're not funded this year. It will be in a following year if we can get it in the FY23. But the city's on it, and it's just a little too early for it to have made it to social media.
Okay, so if it even happens, it's not even gonna happen till 2023 possibly or later?
That is correct, and that is straight from ODOT.
Okay. All right, thank you, that helps.
All right.
We will be, yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on that. We'll be keeping in contact with ODOT, and we'll be keeping updates with everybody involved.
Yes. We just haven't had that first meeting yet.
So I'm committing the staff, so there you go. I'm sure they appreciate it. Okay, I think it's probably time for us to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Thank you. This was a long meeting tonight. Thank you all for hanging in there. Good night.